He came out of the fog like a memory the world wasn't supposed to see. A man with a dead past and a name carved into a grave he never meant to survive. Police saw danger. They sent their most unstoppable weapon, a K9 trained to intercept, disable, and bring giants to their knees. But when the German Shepherd charged across the pier, when he reached the man everyone feared, he didn't bite. He stopped. He trembled. And then the impossible happened. The dog broke formation, collapsed to the ground, and crawled into the stranger's arms. Because this wasn't just any fugitive, and that wasn't just any K9. It was a handler and his partner, reuniting 5 years after the world declared them both dead. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from. And if this story stirs something in your heart, please subscribe for more real miracles like this. A pale curtain of coastal fog drifted across Harbor Point, softening the lights of the fishing town and muffling the restless breath of the sea below. For 6 long hours, Adam Creed had not moved from the splintered bench at the end of the old pier. His posture was rigid, almost sculptural, as though carved from the same cold iron-gray horizon he had been staring into since dawn. He wore a black fleece jacket zipped to the throat, the fabric faded at the elbows, and dark jeans that bore the creases of long travel. Beneath the jacket, his lean frame held the tension of a man who slept lightly and trusted little. At 42, Adam had the face of someone who had walked out of fire and never truly left it behind. Angular jaw, rough stubble along sharp cheekbones, a faint scar dragging through the right eyebrow, and eyes the color of washed steel, eyes that missed nothing and forgave even less. The coastal mist kissed the strands of dark hair damp against his temples, but he didn't lift a hand to brush it away. The cold did not bother him, nor did the stares of the townspeople who passed at a distance, whispering as though the fog itself carried their unease. Harbor Point was a humble place. Rows of weather-beaten houses, painted in chipped blues and greens, fishing nets hanging like tired ghosts, and small shops where everyone knew everyone else's story. That was precisely why Adam's presence rattled the town's rhythm. A stranger who sat too still, breathed too slow, and looked at the water like he expected it to look back. Adam had not intended to stay this long on the pier. He had planned to walk the length of the waterfront, observe the Sea Lark trawler anchored offshore, identify the courier he believed was tied to the same weapons smuggling ring that had erased his entire hostage rescue team 6 years ago. But when he had reached the end of the pier, something in the fog, something in the air, something in his bones whispered, "Wait." So he did. The weight of the memories pressed heavily tonight. 6 years since the explosion in the underground bunker. 6 years since he had pulled the burning debris off K9's shadow with his bare hands, his palms blistering as he screamed for help that never came. 6 years since the roof collapsed, burying them both, and the world declared them dead. Only Adam had lived. Sometimes survival felt like the cruelest outcome. His therapist, the one the Bureau forced upon him, used to say, "Trauma doesn't vanish, Adam. It waits." And he was right. Trauma waited at the edge of sleep, at the bottom of a breath, in the shudder of a metal boat's engine. And tonight it waited in the fog. A soft vibration tremored through the pier planks. Footsteps, light, uncertain. Not a patrol, not a fisherman. Adam angled his gaze just enough to track the approach without revealing awareness. A woman walked toward him, early 50s, tall, broad-shouldered, with a kind of sturdy grace. She moved like someone who had lived her life hauling nets and weathering tempests, both literal and emotional. Her name, he would learn later, was Sarah Whitlock, the owner of the Salty Lantern Cafe down the street. Her auburn hair was braided loosely down her back. A few rebellious strands escaped to frame her sun-worn face. Small laugh lines framed her mouth, but tonight they were pinched with concern. Sarah carried a steaming paper cup in her hands, sleeves of her knitted gray sweater pulled down to shield her wrists from the cold. A simple woman with simple convictions. Help when you can. Fear what you should. Trust only what proves itself. And everything about Adam proved nothing. Cold night to be sitting alone out here, she said, her voice low, careful not to startle him. Adam didn't look away from the water. I'm fine. Didn't say you weren't, she replied. She held out the cup. Coffee, hot, strong enough to wake the dead. Adam didn't move. Sarah sighed softly. Look, sweetheart, I run a cafe. I see all kinds. You're not sightseeing. You're waiting. And whatever you're waiting for, it's heavy enough to crush a man if he holds it wrong. Adam finally turned his head. Just a fraction. Just enough for their eyes to meet. Sarah inhaled sharply, not at the intensity of his gaze, but at the grief buried in it. Grief wrapped in discipline. Grief sharpened into vigilance. Keep it, he said, nodding toward the cup. Thank you anyway. She frowned, studying him with a gaze that had learned to read weather and people with equal precision. If you're in some kind of trouble, I'm not. If you're running, I'm not. If you're dangerous, Adam's voice lowered, only to the wrong people. Sarah stepped back, unsettled by the certainty in those words. She left the cup on the wooden railing and retreated into the fog. Adam's jaw tensed. Encounters like this were exactly what he wanted to avoid. He had not come to Harbor Point to disrupt lives. He had come because a whisper in an encrypted forum suggested that the same courier who supplied the weapons for the bunker ambush would be arriving here under cover of the fog, using a fishing trawler to transport high-grade detonators. He had followed that whisper through 3 states, and it had led him here, to this pier, to this bench, to this moment of waiting. The distant hum of a boat engine drifted across the water, deep, heavy, wrong for a local fishing vessel. Adam's fingers tightened on the edge of the bench. Almost time. A small shape skated through the fog, stopping a cautious distance from him. A boy, maybe 10 or 11, slim, pale-faced, curly brown hair peeking under a knitted beanie. Nervous energy darted around him, the way it often did with children who thought too much and spoke too little. This was Evan Marsh, a quiet, observant kid raised by a grandfather who collected old FBI magazines and newspaper clippings like relics of a fading age. Evan's wide hazel eyes stared at Adam with the kind of awe usually reserved for comic book heroes or fallen kings returned to life. "Mister?" Evan asked hesitantly. Adam didn't answer. He didn't have to. The boy stepped closer, studying the scar through Adam's eyebrow, the hard angle of his jaw, the distant ferocity in his expression. Evan whispered, voice trembling. I think I've seen you before." Adam's breath stilled. The boat engine grew louder, The fog thickened like a held breath. Evan swallowed, clutching the strap of his backpack. I saw you in one of my grandpa's old newspapers. The article about FBI agents who died in that bunker explosion. He pointed a shaking finger at Adam. My grandpa said the newspapers wouldn't lie about something like that. Adam's heart lunged painfully against his ribs. Evan took one more step, eyes round with innocence and fear. Then he whispered, voice barely audible, "You're supposed to be dead." And finally, almost reverently, like naming a ghost, he breathed, "I saw you in that newspaper obituary notice, the one that said Agent Adam Creed died in action." Sheriff Marcus Hale stepped onto the pier with the firm, measured stride of a man who had spent 25 years patrolling a town that rarely gave him trouble, until the recent months when Harbor Point had begun to feel like something was crawling beneath its quiet skin. At 48, Marcus carried the frame of a man built by hard work. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the solid chest of a former high school linebacker who never fully lost his strength. His dark brown skin was weathered from years under sun and salt air, and he wore a neatly trimmed salt and pepper beard that gave his face the stern dignity of a granite statue carved by the sea. His uniform jacket, navy blue with the gold star of Harbor Point stitched over the heart, fit snugly across his shoulders, and his duty belt hung heavy with tools of a peacekeeper who hoped never to use them, but knew he might have to. What defined Marcus Hale more than appearance was the story etched beneath the stern exterior. 10 years ago, his younger brother, a recovering addict, was killed in crossfire during a weapons deal gone wrong just one town over. The grief hardened Marcus, not into cruelty, but into vigilance. He learned to read danger in the shift of a stance, in the quiet tightening of a jaw, in the way someone's gaze held the horizon instead of the present moment. And tonight, as he approached Adam Creed at the end of the pier, his instincts whispered the same word they had whispered the night before his brother died: trouble. "Evening," Marcus said, stopping 2 paces from the bench. His voice was deep, steady, the sort of voice meant to anchor a situation before it drifted into chaos. Adam didn't respond, didn't flinch, didn't breathe any louder. Marcus watched the subtle rise and fall of the man's chest, slow and controlled like a soldier meditating on the edge of a battlefield. "We've had reports," Marcus continued, "of a man sitting out here for hours. No movement, no explanation. You fit the description." Earlier that hour, Marcus had received 2 separate civilian calls reporting that a suspicious man had been watching incoming freight boats for an unusually long time, possibly armed. It wasn't enough to accuse anyone, but enough to trigger procedure, enough to make Marcus take this situation seriously. Adam spoke without turning. "I'm not doing anything illegal." "Never said you were." Marcus adjusted his stance, boots creaking faintly on the damp wood. "But Harbor Point isn't the kind of place where people sit in the cold for 6 hours unless they're waiting for something." Silence. Thick as the fog around them. Marcus noticed everything: the straight spine, the balanced weight distribution, the left hand resting near the thigh, not tense, not clenched, but ready. A man who knew a fight could start without warning. "Sir," Marcus tried again, "I'm going to need to see your ID." "No," the answer was, quiet, almost polite, but as rigid as steel. Marcus narrowed his eyes. "You refusing to identify yourself?" "I'm waiting," Adam murmured, "for something that's coming in on the fog." The sheriff felt a prickle at the back of his neck. "Meaning?" Adam didn't respond. The fog deepened around them, curling like cold breath around the posts of the pier. Far out on the water, a low engine rumbled, distant, unfamiliar. Marcus followed Adam's gaze to the horizon and saw nothing but gray. He drew a slow breath, steadying himself. "Look," he said, softening his voice. Harbor Point's had a rise in break-ins, stolen fuel, and boat vandalism these past months. Folks are nervous. I can't just let a stranger sit out here like a storm cloud waiting to break. Help me out." "I can't," Adam said simply. That flicker of refusal, so calm and so final, ignited the warning bells in Marcus's mind. People hiding something usually rambled, lied, shifted their weight, sweated. Adam did none of those. He was too controlled, too still, too familiar with danger. Marcus took half a step closer. "Sir, I need you to stand up." Adam didn't move. "Please don't," he said quietly. Not a threat, not fear, almost sorrow. Marcus felt irritation tighten his jaw. He was not a man who enjoyed confrontation, but he wasn't one to walk away from it either. "Is there someone I can call? Family? Friends?" Adam shook his head once. "They're all gone." Something in the way he said it, the depth, the certainty, hit Marcus harder than he expected. Grief recognized grief. For a moment, the sheriff hesitated. But duty, sharpened by 10 years of loss, overrode compassion. "All right," Marcus said, stepping back enough to reach for the radio clipped to his shoulder. "I'm calling this in." "Don't," Adam murmured. "You'll bring trouble down on yourself." Marcus narrowed his eyes. "Trouble's already here." Before he could respond, faint footsteps approached from the left side of the pier. A familiar voice called out, "Sheriff, everything okay?" It was Tommy O'Brien, a 27-year-old dock worker with a lanky build, sandy blonde hair, and the perpetually tired eyes of a man juggling 2 jobs and a newborn at home. Tommy was gentle by nature, kind to tourists, devoted to his wife, afraid of confrontation. His presence here tonight was unlucky timing. "Go home, Tommy," Marcus said firmly. "Not your business." Tommy swallowed and stepped back into the fog. The sheriff refocused on Adam. "Last chance. Stand up and show me some ID." Slowly, Adam rose from the bench, but not in surrender. The movement was fluid, controlled, the way a wolf rises before deciding whether to fight or flee. His eyes, those cold, steel-gray eyes, met Marcus's. "You don't want to do this," Adam said. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the fog. This man was dangerous, not reckless, not unstable, dangerous in a disciplined, trained way, someone who had seen too much, survived too much, and carried shadows like scars on the inside. "Tell me what you're waiting for," Marcus demanded. Adam glanced back toward the water. "A mistake," he said, "or a man, or a boat. Hard to tell sometimes." The sheriff's patience snapped. He hit the button on his shoulder radio. "Dispatch, this is Hale. Send K9 unit to the South Pier. Possible threat, non-compliant male." Adam closed his eyes for a brief second, the barest flicker of emotion crossing his face. Pain, resignation, something old and heavy stirring beneath his ribs. "You shouldn't have done that," he whispered. Marcus didn't look away. "I'm doing my job." "So am I," Adam said. The distant boat engine grew louder, echoing through the fog like a warning drum. The town held its breath. The pier creaked, and Sheriff Marcus Hale committed the first irreversible action in a chain of events he did not yet understand, pressing the button that summoned the K-9 unit, planting the seed of conflict that would change Harbor Point forever. The quiet pier trembled under the distant growl of an approaching engine, but another sound rose beneath it, a soft, rhythmic thumping, the cadence of disciplined paws striking wet wood. The K-9 unit had arrived. Officer Laura Jensen was the first to emerge from the shadows of the lot. She moved with a crisp precision shaped by habit rather than ego, a woman whose presence suggested structure, not force. At 33, Laura carried a lean, compact strength, 5'5" with wiry muscles wrapped beneath a fitted patrol jacket. Her light brown hair was pulled into a no-nonsense bun, and her angular jaw added an unyielding edge to her otherwise calm features. Laura's eyes, sharp hazel, always assessing, belonged to someone who rarely slept more than 5 hours and trusted instincts over gossip. She had transferred to Harbor Point 2 years earlier after a hostage call in Seattle ended in a tragedy she couldn't forget. A fellow officer she'd trusted had made a premature entry, and the resulting explosion killed the team's K-9. Laura blamed herself for not pulling him back in time. Since then, she had carried an unspoken vow: no K-9 dies under my watch ever again. Tonight, the vow trembled, because the dog she held on a tactical lead, the dog the department called Titan, wasn't a typical K-9. Titan was a 3-year-old German shepherd with a sable-black coat, strong shoulders, and the compact, lethal grace of a trained fighter. But his eyes were what caught people, amber, intense, with a strange sadness that didn't belong to a young dog. A sadness that had shadowed him since the day he was found barely alive in the ruins of an industrial blast 5 years ago. When rescuers found him, his handler was unaccounted for, and the military database flagged the dog's file as orphaned K-9, handler missing. With no surviving unit to claim him, Titan was eventually reassigned into the civilian system and later transferred to Harbor Point PD. No one ever connected him to the handler listed presumed KIA, Adam Creed, until tonight. Marcus Hale stepped back as Laura approached. "Thanks for coming," he muttered. "This one's not cooperating." Laura didn't look at Marcus. Her focus locked onto Adam Creed, standing still near the end of the pier, the fog curling around him like a shroud. "Titan," she said, voice firm. "Watch." The dog lowered his head, muscles coiled. Adam didn't flinch. He only exhaled once, slow and weary, as if something inevitable was approaching. "Ma'am," Marcus warned, "just keep him on alert, all right? I don't want this turning." But Laura was already giving the next command. "Advance!" Titan surged forward, not recklessly, but with the precise drive of a trained interceptor. His paws hammered the pier, his breath sharp and hot in the cold air. He closed the distance with explosive speed. Marcus braced. Laura steadied her grip, and Adam Creed didn't move. His eyes softened, not with fear, not resignation, but something far stranger: recognition. The wind changed. A gust rolled off the ocean, sweeping across the pier, cutting through the fog like a blade. It carried the scent of damp salt. But beneath it, something older, something buried. A scent Titan knew intimately. Adam Creed's scent. The same trace that once lived on tactical gloves, desert dust, and the collar Titan used to nuzzle before missions. a scent Titan had lost in fire and smoke. The dog froze. The transformation was immediate and violent. Titan's charging stride stuttered, then collapsed into stillness mid-run. His claws scraped against the boards, body trembling as if struck by a shock wave. A strangled noise rose from his throat, half groan, half keening cry, the sound of a memory coming back to life. Marcus blinked. What the? But Titan wasn't hearing anyone now. He stepped forward slowly, shaking, ears flattened. His amber eyes were wide, not with aggression, but with recognition so intense it bordered on grief. Lara's grip tightened on the leash. Titan, heel! Heel! Titan ignored the command. He ignored all of them. Adam knelt, palms open, the fog curling around him like a curtain revealing an ancient truth. Shadow, he whispered. It wasn't the police name. It was the old one, the one from the desert, from missions no record had ever fully captured. The dog collapsed into a bow, front legs bent, chest hitting the wood with a dull thud. Then he crawled forward, trembling violently, until his muzzle pressed into Adam's waiting hand. A sound broke from Titan, raw, wounded, primal. A broken cry from a heart that had been walking lost for years. And then he pushed his entire weight against Adam's chest, burying his head under the man's arm as if trying to climb back into a memory where they were never torn apart. Lara stared, frozen. Marcus whispered, "That isn't possible." Adam stroked the dog's neck with trembling fingers. "Easy, boy. I've got you. I'm here." Titan, Shadow, let out another shaking cry. The pier fell silent except for that sound, echoing like a soul returning to the living. Lara's breath hitched. Shock warred with disbelief. She stepped forward slowly, pulling out the scanner clipped to her belt, a compact black device used for verifying microchips. Her hand shook slightly. I need to check something." Adam gave a single nod. Titan didn't move except to press even closer. The scanner beeped once. Data flashed across the tiny screen. Lara's jaw slackened. Her breath stilled. She read the line again and again. "Registered handler, Special Agent Adam Creed. Status, missing. Presumed KIA." Marcus swore under his breath. Lara looked up, eyes wide. "Sir, this dog wasn't dead. He was listed as missing after that explosion, and he belonged to him." Adam didn't look up. He simply rested his forehead against the dog's skull, a silent, shattered reunion between two halves of a life destroyed. Behind them, the fog deepened, and a boat engine, still distant but growing louder, cut through the night like a ticking fuse. The fog thickened around the pier, curling like the breath of something ancient rising from cold water. The waves slammed against the pylons with heavy, deliberate rhythm, as if echoing the pulse hammering in Adam Creed's chest. Shadow, still pressed against him, gave small, broken whimpers, his powerful frame trembling with a blend of terror and relief that no training manual could ever prepare a dog for. The weight of that trembling traveled into Adam's body, awakening memories he had locked away so deeply he had convinced himself they belonged to another life. Officer Lara Jensen stood a few steps back, her scanner still glowing with the impossible information she'd read. The wind whipped her brown bun loose at the edges, and her hazel eyes, usually sharp and unflinching, looked shaken, almost fragile. How, how is this real? She whispered. She wasn't asking the ocean. She wasn't asking Shadow. She was asking the man who shouldn't be alive. Sheriff Marcus Hale moved to her side. His tall, squared frame, built from 2 decades of lifting fishing crates before joining the police, suddenly looked small beneath the fog. The faint stubble on his jaw shadowed a man who once trusted structure and rules more than instinct. But nothing in tonight's chaos followed any rule he knew. "You want to explain this?" Marcus asked, voice rough, though not hostile. Adam felt Shadow's breath against his ribs. Warm, trusting, alive. Something inside him cracked. "I wasn't going to talk," Adam said quietly, his voice gravel scraping through memory. "I didn't plan to talk at all." Lara took a step closer, the tactical lead slack in her hand. "But you will now," she said, not an order, but an invitation. For a long moment, Adam said nothing. His steel-colored eyes drifted toward the dark horizon where waves merged with night. The truth had weight, heavy enough that he had carried it alone for 6 years. But Shadow pushed his head deeper under Adam's arm, and that was the thing that finally loosened his locked jaw. "6 years ago," Adam began, "I was part of a joint FBI-ATF strike team sent to recover stolen military-grade weapons from an underground storage site. It wasn't just any location. It was built like a warren, halls, tunnels, blind corners, exits that led nowhere. A death trap disguised as a warehouse." Lara swallowed hard. "And Shadow?" Adam nodded. "He was already part of my team. Back then he was only a year old, but he learned fast. He had instincts you couldn't teach." Adam paused as his breath fogged the air. "We breached at 0200. Quiet, controlled, everything by the book. But whoever ran that operation, they knew we were coming." The pier fell silent, except for the thundering waves. They detonated charges under the main hallway. The blast didn't rip outward, it collapsed the floor. We all fell into a tunnel system below, dark, full of smoke, fire everywhere. Shadow shuddered, as if some flicker of the memory reached him. "Shadow was ahead of me," Adam continued, voice tightening, "when the second explosion went off. He disappeared in the fireball. There was no scream, just the shock wave." Lara's breath caught. Marcus looked away, jaw tight. Adam ran a hand down Shadow's neck, slow and grounding. I tried to reach him, clawed through debris until my hands bled. But the team pulled me out seconds before the whole structure caved in. His eyes dimmed. "They told me Shadow was gone. No remains found. The force of the blast. They said it was enough to erase everything." Shadow pressed his muzzle against Adam's chest. Adam exhaled a tremor. "After the mission failed, I was placed into a federal protective program. Someone inside that weapons network leaked our identities. For my safety, they buried everything, my name, my past, including Shadow." Lara blinked. "But Shadow survived." "Yes," Adam said softly. "Apparently someone found him 2 months later. We don't know how. Maybe pockets of air. Maybe he crawled through collapsed tunnels. But when rescue teams found him, he was barely responsive. Trauma, burn injuries, memory loss." "That explains his freezes," Lara whispered. "The way he reacts to certain noises." Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. "So the rescue center didn't connect him to you?" His chip was damaged, Lara said before Adam could answer. If the handler file was sealed by a high-level clearance during your protective removal, the system wouldn't link the two. Adam nodded. The system believed I died. The system believed he died. We were ghosts of a mission no one wanted to speak about again. Lara exhaled shakily. That's why he ran to you. Why he broke protocol. Adam nodded once. He didn't remember the blast, but he remembered me. The wind shifted again, carrying the scent of diesel, not the familiar kind from Harbor Point's fishing boats. Heavier, oily, industrial. Shadow's ears snapped upward. Marcus noticed immediately. Did you hear something? Not here, Adam murmured. Shadow smelled something, and Adam did too. A scent he had not breathed in 6 years. Not one of danger, but of people who brought danger with them. Before he could warn the others, tires rolled over gravel above the pier. Slow, controlled, not local. A black SUV emerged from the fog. Its paint reflected almost no light. Its windows were tinted deeper than state law allowed, unless the driver carried federal-level clearance. Lara's posture tightened. Marcus's hand dropped near his holster. That's not one of ours, Marcus muttered. Adam rose slowly. Shadow stepped into position beside him, stance low, protective. The SUV stopped. The engine idled. Then the doors opened. 2 men stepped out. No badges visible, no insignias, no introduction. But their posture, their stillness, the way their eyes scanned the pier in clean, disciplined sweeps, they didn't look like FBI. They looked like people who worked above the FBI, people who operated in the gray edges of classified worlds Adam once brushed against. Shadow growled, a low, vibrating sound that warned of old enemies. Adam whispered, "It's them." Marcus frowned. Them who? Adam's jaw tightened. The ones who were never supposed to find me. The black SUV idled like a predator crouched in the fog, its headlights cutting harsh white lines across the pier's wet planks. Adam Creed stood still, Shadow pressed close to his leg, their breaths rising in the cold air as one. Sheriff Marcus Hale tensed, hand hovering near his belt, not in readiness to fight, but in the uneasy instinct of a man who knew he had just lost control of his own jurisdiction. Officer Lara Jensen remained behind Adam's shoulder, the scanner still in her hand, her hazel eyes darting between the figures stepping out of the SUV. She wasn't fearful. She was furious, quietly, tightly, in the way law-abiding people get when they realize the law doesn't always protect what deserves protection. This wasn't standard FBI response. Marcus knew it. Adam knew it even before the doors opened. These people moved like those who operated within deeper layers of federal systems, internal ops and WITPAC enforcement, the category of agents who didn't appear on public rosters, whose primary job was to enforce the rules that protected the nation's most dangerous secrets. And Adam Creed was one of those secrets. The first figure emerged with the rigid grace of someone carved from cold authority. Special Agent Amanda Reyes, late 30s, compact athletic build, posture like a steel beam forced into human shape. Her black hair was cut in a sharp bob that framed a face too still, too controlled. Emotion had been trained out of her long ago. High cheekbones, stone brown eyes, and a deep-set determination that radiated through every precise step. Reyes was well known inside the deepest halls of the Bureau, ruthlessly professional, allergic to exceptions, and loyal to protocol in the way some people were loyal to blood. Her presence chilled the pier. A second figure emerged, Agent Victor Lang, her junior, taller, broader, early 30s, with dark blonde hair and a trimmed mustache that failed to harden his soft features. He had the look of a man who wanted to be intimidating, but whose conscience still held too much softness for the role. Reyes reached them first, her gaze locking onto Adam with surgical intensity. "Adam Creed," she said, voice flat as an iron plate. "You are in direct violation of your Whitpack protective directives. You abandoned your assigned safe region, crossed state lines under a false identity, and exposed yourself to civilian interaction. You triggered 2 automated facial recognition alerts on transit cameras. You are officially off protocol." Adam didn't answer. Shadow growled quietly, not at her tone, but at her smell, the metallic, sterile scent of a world that had once torn him away from everything familiar. Reyes continued, "Your unauthorized movement has compromised an ongoing federal surveillance zone. You are obstructing internal operations." Lara stepped forward before Adam could respond. "Ma'am, with respect, he didn't obstruct anything. We approached him. He didn't ask for involvement." Reyes didn't blink in her direction. "Officer Jensen, this matter is federal. Stand down." Marcus tightened his jaw. "This is still my city." Reyes gave him a glance so sharp and brief it felt like an insult. "Not for the next 10 minutes. Shadow barked, a sharp protective sound. Reyes pointed at the dog. "And that animal, K9S4, is federal property that disappeared during an ATF-FBI joint operation. His chip was logged as destroyed and his file sealed at level 6 clearance. Under federal statute, he is to be recovered immediately." Adam shifted his stance, stepping between her and Shadow. Not aggressively, simply with unshakable certainty. Reyes stepped closer. "Step aside, Creed." "No." The word echoed like a crack in the fog. Lang swallowed. "Ma'am, maybe we should hold until—" Reyes cut him off with a raised palm. "He is not making decisions here. The Bureau is." But the Bureau wasn't the only one watching. Phones were out. Windows glowed with recording screens. Dock workers whispered. Tourists live-streamed. Marcus saw it and whispered a curse. "Reyes, the town is filming this. People already think something's wrong." "Then we end it," Reyes said. "Now." Lara stiffened. "He's not equipment. He remembers Adam." Reyes turned her head slowly, irritation sharpening her already carved features. "Officer, your emotional interpretation is irrelevant. That dog is classified federal material. It will be reclaimed according to statute." Adam's voice cut through the cold air, quiet, steady, deadly, controlled. "He's not material," Reyes snapped back to him. "You forfeited your right to make that claim the moment you entered witness security." Shadow growled, deep, primal, protective. Reyes nodded to Lang. "Prepare the containment harness." Lang hesitated. "Ma'am, the dog isn't responding to commands." "He doesn't need to respond," Reyes replied. "He only needs to be contained." Adam's fists curled. He had seen Shadow buried under rubble, burned, screaming silently through smoke. He had held on to him while half the world collapsed, and this woman dared call him a piece of equipment. Reyes leaned in, lowering her voice. "You abandoned command once before, Creed. Do not make this worse." Adam met her gaze dead center. "I'm not leaving him again." For the first time, Reyes faltered. the smallest stiffness in her jaw. Then, the first phone chimed. Then another. Then all of them. A tidal wave of notifications erupted across the fog. People gasped. Screens lit up brighter. Marcus pulled out his phone. Lara checked hers. Reyes's earpiece buzzed violently. A video, uploaded less than 5 minutes ago. Shadow freezing mid-charge. Shadow recognizing Adam. Shadow collapsing into him, trembling with impossible joy. Adam whispering his name. 2 ghosts clinging to each other after years of being declared dead. View count, 3.7 million. Hashtags exploding. Shadow lives. Let them stay together. The handler. And the ghost dog, Reyes, finally looked at her own phone. Her face drained of authority. She tapped her earpiece. "This is Reyes. HQ. We have a situation." A voice cut sharply through her line. Her posture snapped straight. "Yes, sir. Yes, I saw the video." "Understood." A long pause followed. Her jaw pulsed with humiliation. Then she looked up, voice brittle, forced, mechanical. "Creed, I've been ordered to stand down." Lang blinked. "Ma'am?" Reyes didn't look at him. "No one touches the dog. No one touches him either. The incident is now under review." Shadow exhaled softly and leaned into Adam, sensing victory. Reyes looked as if she had swallowed a blade. By the next morning, Harbor Point no longer felt like a quiet coastal town. It felt like the center of a storm woven not from wind or tide, but from millions of beating hearts and raised voices. News vans crowded the harbor road like a convoy of metal beasts, their satellite dishes raised toward the sky as if begging gods of signal and ratings for favor. Reporters moved in clusters, mic flags flashing red, blue, and yellow beneath the pale dawn light. People shouted questions fired like bullets at the invisible wall between truth and spectacle. Adam Creed stood on the pier, one hand resting against Shadow's neck. The dog leaned into him gently, panting quietly, his amber eyes scanning the horizon with the calm vigilance of a veteran who had survived too much to ever fully rest. The sea air was sharp and cold, normally the kind that steadied Adam's heartbeat. But today, everything felt too loud, too exposed. Above them, on the second-floor balcony of the Harbor Point Community Center, Sheriff Marcus Hale tried and failed to keep reporters back. Hale, a broad-shouldered man in his early 50s, with a thick salt and pepper beard and eyes that had seen too much grief to trust easily, raised both arms to quiet the chaos. "Back up! Everyone just back up! Whitpack is making a statement soon!" People didn't listen. Miracles never drew silence, only hunger. Lara Jensen stepped beside Adam, jacket replaced by a dark green fleece. Her hair was tied loosely, exhaustion etched beneath her hazel eyes. She looked smaller today, not from fear, but from carrying the weight of a truth bigger than any badge. "They're not going anywhere," she murmured. "No," Adam answered, "they're not." Shadow pressed against Adam's thigh, sensing his tension. His tail thumped softly once, steadying, grounding, as if reminding Adam he wasn't alone. A cluster of military veterans gathered at the front of the crowd. One elderly man in a wheelchair held a cardboard sign in trembling hands. "Let the soldier keep his dog." Beside him, a woman in her 70s wore a faded canine handler jacket. She gave Adam a slow, heartfelt salute. He returned it, reflexive, reverent. Shadow nudged his hand again. "You're not buried anymore." Before Adam could speak, a familiar figure approached through the thinning fog, Special Agent Amanda Reyes. In daylight, she looked more human. The hard lines of her face softened by exhaustion. Yet her posture remained steel, disciplined, unwavering. Behind her came a stockier man in a navy windbreaker, marked only with a discreet badge clipped near the collar. Samuel Trent, Deputy Director of Whitpack Operations, the overseer of high-threat witness protection cases and federal asset recovery. He had thinning blonde hair, a tight tie choking a thick neck, and the uneasy stiffness of a bureaucrat forced into the real world after too long behind tinted office glass. Reyes stopped in front of Adam, voice low but steady. "Creed," Trent stepped forward, forcing a professional smile. "Mr. Creed, quite an unfortunate situation we've stumbled into." Adam didn't acknowledge him. Trent wasn't speaking to him, just speaking at him. Shadow growled softly. Trent flinched. "Well," Trent cleared his throat, "the Joint Oversight Committee has reached a determination." The crowd hushed. Phones lifted. Reyes inhaled, then spoke with clipped clarity, louder than the reporter's chatter. "Following emergency review by the Federal Joint Oversight Committee, comprised of representatives from Whitpack, the FBI Office of Special Investigations, ATF Internal Examiner Division, and DOJ Counsel," Trent cut in smugly, "due to overwhelming public interest." Reyes continued without acknowledging him. "The committee has issued the following directive. K9 Unit Shadow, formerly designated Federal Asset S4, is hereby granted full and permanent retirement, effective immediately." A ripple moved through the crowd. Reyes pressed on. "All custodial rights, ownership, and authority of care are transferred to former Special Agent Adam Creed." The reaction erupted like fireworks. Cheers, claps, whistles, veterans saluting, K9 handlers wiping away tears, families hugging each other as if witnessing resurrection. A dozen signs shot upward. People shouted Adam's name. Cameras flashed like lightning. Adam closed his eyes. Shadow whined softly and pressed his muzzle into Adam's chest, trembling with a release 6 years overdue. Adam knelt and wrapped his arms around the dog. Shadow leaned into him, not shaking from fear, shaking from relief. Laura blinked away tears. Even Reyes's jaw softened by a fraction. When Adam rose again, Trent clapped sharply. "Excellent. Now that the formalities are complete." Reyes shot him a glare so sharp it cut his sentence in half. Then she reached into her coat and pulled out a heavy sealed manila folder, worn, stamped with overlapping classification labels. "Creed," she said, voice shifting. Iron melted into something quieter, darker. "There's something else." Adam's brow tightened. "What is it?" Reyes hesitated. For the first time since arriving in Harbor Point, emotion cracked through her voice. This file was not authorized for release. But after last night's incident, the Oversight Committee lifted certain restrictions. Adam took the folder. Heavy. Too heavy. Reyes exhaled. "Adam, the man who planted the charges that killed your team, the one the Bureau claimed died in the collapse." She swallowed, a tremor flicking across her lips. "He didn't die." The world dimmed around him. Sound softened to a distant ringing. Reyes forced the final words out. "He is alive. And according to our latest confirmed intel," she paused, eyes locking on his, "he is here, in Harbor Point." Shadow's ears snapped forward. Adam's grip tightened on the folder, heartbeat syncing with the pulsing fear inside. Harbor Point was no longer a sanctuary. It was the beginning of the second war he never expected to fight. Night settled over Harbor Point like a slow-moving tide, thick with salt, fog, and something quieter but far more dangerous: anticipation. The last traces of day clung to the water in a faint silver sheen, quickly swallowed by the rising Pacific mist. The Coast Guard helicopter that had been circling the shoreline finally veered eastward, its thumping blades scattering streaks of fog like torn banners in retreat. Adam Creed stood at the edge of the pier, shoulders squared beneath the weight of inevitability. His face, hard-edged from years of training and harder years of loss, was half lit by the yellow glow of the harbor lamp behind him. His dark hair, cut short but no longer regulation neat, fluttered gently in the cold wind. He looked older than his late 30s, older in the way someone becomes when they've buried people who never should have died. But something in him had changed since the night before. The burden was still there, but the emptiness wasn't. Shadow had filled that void simply by living. Shadow sat at his side, posture regal and alert. His sable coat caught the lamplight in warm bronze streaks, and his amber eyes were sharp, scanning the shifting mist as if he could sense the storm gathering in its depths. His ears flicked at distant sounds: boats creaking, gulls screaming somewhere beyond sight, footsteps echoing faintly along the boardwalk. Yet his body remained perfectly steady, every muscle coiled but calm. A soldier awaiting the next command. The pier behind them had transformed entirely. Earlier that day, townspeople, fishermen, veterans, tourists, even children, had gathered to mount a wooden plaque onto the old bench where Adam was first seen. They had sanded the surface smooth and carved the words with the care usually reserved for gravestones or holy places. For those who guard us, even when the world thinks they are gone. Flowers still rested at its base. A little girl with braids had placed a stuffed toy dog on the bench. Someone else laid a folded American flag. Adam had thanked them quietly, though the words had felt too small. But Harbor Point was not where he planned to stay. He wasn't built for staying, and tonight, staying had become impossible. Sheriff Marcus Hale hurried toward him across the empty boardwalk, breath misting in broken clouds. His heavy boots echoed with urgency, and his thick beard trembled with each step. His brown eyes, usually steady, watchful, held none of their usual calm. "Adam," Marcus called out, raising a hand. "We've got a situation." Adam turned slowly. "Another press wave? Tell them to aim the cameras somewhere else." Marcus shook his head sharply. "Not reporters. Something worse." He swallowed, lowering his voice. Marcus Hale was not a man easily rattled. Decades of service had hardened him into someone who could face storms with only a frown. But tonight, he looked unsettled. Adam's body tensed. "What happened?" Marcus glanced toward the fog-drenched street before speaking. "Whitpack just called me. They tracked a signal, your signal." He paused. "Or at least, someone using data tied to your old operation." Adam froze. Marcus lowered his voice even further. "Your ghost is here." The mist deepened around them, swallowing sound. Adam's jaw clenched, muscles tightening beneath scarred skin. "You mean him, the demolitions tech, the traitor," Marcus nodded grimly. "Bradford Kane." The name struck Adam with the force of a distant explosion, one he had always felt coming but never knew when it would reach him. Kane had been part of the same tactical roster. Tall, pale, with a slight limp from an old shrapnel injury. Always quiet, too quiet, and far too skilled. The kind of man who understood how to make things disappear. In the tunnels 6 years ago, he had walked behind Adam until the bombs revealed where his loyalty truly lived. Shadow stiffened, sensing Adam's shift in heartbeat and stance. Before Adam could respond, a new voice joined them from behind. "You won't be able to outrun this one, Creed." Reyes stepped out of the fog, breath forming pale clouds around her stern face. But tonight, something softer lingered beneath her usual steel. Under the harbor's dim lights, the sharp planes of her cheeks and jaw looked carved yet exhausted. Her hands were tucked into the pockets of her Whitpack field coat, but her posture was alert. A guardian, not an enforcer. "You knew he'd come," Adam said. "Yes," Reyes replied, "but not this soon, and not here. He's bold, too bold." She hesitated. "Which means he's either desperate or he thinks he knows something we don't." Shadow moved forward slightly, muscles rippling under his coat. "What's the plan?" Adam asked. Reyes exchanged a look with Marcus. The sheriff nodded grimly. Reyes took a slow breath. Kane was spotted at the abandoned shipyard on the other side of town. Old Pier 19. He's using the warehouses as cover. There's no civilian traffic at this hour, but he's moving. And he's armed. Adam's eyes narrowed. "He wants me to come." "He wants to finish what he started," Reyes whispered. "And he wants the dog gone." Her voice dropped. Shadow survived something that should have killed him. That alone threatens every piece of Kane's story. Marcus crossed his arms, beard twitching. "We've positioned deputies across the route, but Kane's a ghost. According to the updated intel Whitpack unlocked today, he knows the sewer systems and maintenance tunnels under the harbor better than most lifelong locals." Adam went silent. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, steady, unshaking. "Then we take the direct path." Reyes frowned. "Meaning?" "We go now," Adam said, "before he disappears again, before he has time to set traps." Shadow rose, tail straight, eyes burning with purpose. Marcus rubbed a hand over his beard, torn. "We go in under-equipped and understaffed. We risk walking into a kill box." Adam met his gaze without blinking. "Marcus, he killed my team. He tried to kill me, and he almost killed Shadow." He lowered a hand to the dog's collar, gripping the leather. "We finish this, together." Reyes exhaled sharply, then nodded. "Fine, but we do it smart. I'll bring tactical intel. Marcus brings local knowledge. You bring the dog." She stepped forward until her face was inches from Adam's. "But understand this, Creed. If we take one wrong turn, Kane will bury us under this city." Adam didn't flinch. "Then we make sure he doesn't get the chance." The three of them walked toward the dark street at the end of the boardwalk, swallowed quickly by the fog. Shadow padded ahead, silent and focused, a ghost with a heartbeat. Above the water, the mist thickened until the pier vanished completely. In its place came only the whisper of the ocean, an omen, a promise, or perhaps a warning. Because the night had brought more than fog. It had brought a hunter, and it had brought the hunted, and tonight no one yet knew which was which. Sometimes the greatest battles are not fought in deserts or distant cities, but in the quiet corners of our own hearts. Adam thought he had lost everything: his team, his mission, even his purpose. Yet in the darkest moment, God placed a survivor at his feet, a dog who should not have lived, but did. Shadow wasn't just a partner. He was a reminder that miracles do not always arrive with thunder and angels. Sometimes they come on 4 trembling legs, with a wounded body and a loyal heart. Sometimes the miracle is simply being given another chance. One more breath, one more day, one more mission. And maybe that is God's message for all of us. No matter how heavy your past is, no matter what shadows have followed you, there is always a way home. There is always a new beginning. There is always a light waiting in the fog, if you are willing to lift your eyes and keep walking. If this story touched your heart today, I invite you to share it with someone who might need a reminder that they aren't alone. Tell me where you're watching from in the comments, your city, your state, or your prayer. And if you believe that God still sends us miracles in unexpected forms, hit the like button and subscribe to join our family here. May God bless you, protect you, and guide every step of your journey. And may He place a little miracle beside your path, just when you need it most.